people need to learn the technical tools more than anything. And
Quite funny.
yeah, it's actually funny. Well, the drawing is funny itself. So continuing on, wait a minute, what happened? Okay, with the development and wide use of the computer and internet, more schools have turned to technology to help the instruction or assessment of school subjects. And I believe the word more there is a little bit off because probably almost all schools have turned to technology now. And due to the increasing desire for multimodal, flexible education models throughout the pandemic, hybrid or blended classes have arisen as a way of combining face-to-face interaction and online tools. So today's session, what we're going to talk about in this session is making the shift to hybrid learning, facilitating online education, how schools can get it right, models for making the most out of hybrid learning, presenting new information, what are good practices in use, keys to success, and tips by and for teachers. Let me see what these chats are. Okay, those are not related to me. Guess you guys have to fill in your attendance link, which may not be open. Okay, so I'm continuing. The first thing we're going to talk about is making the shift. Okay, the online classroom is a potentially powerful teaching and learning area in which new practices and new relationships can make significant contributions to learning. In order to harness the power this creates in education, instructors must be trained not only to use technology, but also to shift the ways in which they organize and deliver material. Making this shift can increase the potential for learners to take charge of their own learning process and facilitate the development of a sense of community among them. And we talked a little bit about that last time, developing a sense of community. You should make sure your students understand the following things as well. A hybrid course delivers instruction and learning activities in both face-to-face and online modalities. Expect that instruction and assignments will be partly presented in the classroom and partly online. The percentage or division of online and classroom learning for each hybrid subject will vary depending on the course content and the teacher preference. Hybrid courses take advantage of the best feature on both face-to-face and online learning, creating the best of both worlds within a single course. And as was mentioned earlier, it's the best for the students. Can be difficult for teachers. With the hybrid model, schools are aiming for the following benefits. Okay, we have the benefits for students. Alternative materials. Students are provided with meaningful alternative content and activities to participate, practice, and be assessed. This is important. They can do things, their own things, which is nice. Equivalency. Students are provided with learning activities in all participation modes, which leads to equivalent learning outcomes. So it's equal. Digital content. Lesson, textbooks, and other related course content in which students gain access to the content of the course are made available online. Review. Students can rewatch recorded lectures, spend more time on practice exercises, reread peer discussion comments, and take the time they need to successfully complete assignments within the semester. This is one of the important things because students have as much time as they want to work on their own, so that's a good thing. And reflection, students have more time to reflect when working and writing online than when responding in class. Now, this was benefits for students. Now we're talking about benefits for schools. Personalization. Schools can determine the level of personalization of online work as well as the rich face-to-face interactions in the classroom. Flexibility, a word we have heard over and over. Schools are free to determine how much time should be spent in each mode and what instructional activities should be online or in class, depending on the course goals and available resources. Reusability. Schools can use digitalized content and material as learning objects in the current and future iterations of the course. So you can reuse. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. If it's been done, if your colleague did it, or if you find it online, you can use it. Make it easy for yourself. And now, how to design a hybrid course. Although some course elements are briefly mentioned in the following part, they will be explained further in related sessions in the following days. In part of your 6 days, you're going to learn a lot about this. So first of all, focus on course design, not on technology. Re-examine course objectives and consider how they can best be achieved in the hybrid environment. Capitalize on each modality. Plan learning activities that capitalize on the strengths of online and face-to-face learning environment. Face-to-face, best for problem solving, performance-based demonstrations, individual presentations, and coaching. Online is best for information acquisition, drill and practice, quizzes, project development, peer reviews, and discussion. Next, integrate online and face-to-face course elements. Connect what occurs in the class with what is studied online to avoid the feeling of two fragmented courses. Your dear teachers, your thoughtful planning of how students shift between online and face-to-face activities will make a difference. Avoid the course and a half phenomenon. Don't overload the course. Hybrid learning is not about adding online activities to a traditional face-to-face course. Consider carefully what parts of the learning should occur in person and what parts can occur online on the learner's own time. Create a hybrid course schedule. Calculate the workload by making a schedule for in-class and online work. And here's a little tip. Online activities take twice as long as you think. And explain the hybrid format in the syllabus. Modify your syllabus to include an introduction to your new class format. Help students understand your course structure and flow. Rationalize why you chose certain elements to be face-to-face mode and others online. Define clear expectations for student work and interaction in both modalities. Okay, and keep checking the chat. Okay, the chat is not really for me. Okay, now promoting a hybrid course. First of all, adhere to social distancing in class. During the COVID pandemic, enforce safety policies. I'm sure everyone is. Plan for individual learning activities that necessitate the use of classroom or lab tools. Provide detailed assignment instructions. Write detailed instructions for all assignment in face-to-face and online modes. Instruction should self-teach and stand alone so that any student can likely perform the task required independently. And be present online. Relationships do matter. Checking in on how students are doing is critical during this challenging time. It's important to check in every week through offline and real-time conversations. Send weekly announcements, monitor course activity, and move discussions forward when it stalls or gets off track. Hold online consultancy hours when needed. Next, facilitate online engagement and interactions. Provide opportunities for student interactions in the online environment. Ensure students know their progress. Regularly provide feedback and clearly articulate criteria for success. Collect assessment data on students' growth. It's important for students to know how they're doing. Consider mode neutral. Mode neutral is in the similar spirit of universal design for learning, in that it promotes flexible options for learners to interact with the content, be engaged, and be assessed. This approach is applicable to the design of any course in any modality. So you may be wondering exactly what is mode neutral. It's a constructivist approach that values learners and promotes a baseline for designing courses that facilitate learner engagement with the instructor, with other learners, and with course material in a virtual learning environment, regardless of the mode.
There is
As
a
I just,
questions.
really? Okay.
Yeah. Uh, in the chat box
Okay,
from
let me get
Hamza.
to that. What does it mean, avoid half a phenomena? That means, avoid the course and a half phenomena. I'm sorry, maybe I didn't clearly say that. Course and a half means just because you're doing it, because you're adding in these online activities, don't overload the students, don't make it like the workload of a course and a half. Okay, I think that's probably clear. Maybe I didn't say that clearly before, sorry. Okay, so we're back to talking about mode neutral, as I said, is in the spirit of the universal design for learning, in that it also promotes flexible options for learners to interact with the content, be engaged, and assessed. If we start with having all courses built in the learning management system, adhering to quality standards, we should then use the flipped classroom approach to promote learning asynchronously to the greatest extent possible to help students achieve course outcomes. Okay. And as the above suggested in order, we can then leverage a range of blended learning approaches and or modes of delivery, if necessary, as a means of supporting the learning in ways unique to that mode. This approach is applicable to the design of any course. Imagine the benefit for an English teacher that has leveraged the learning management system to reinforce the mechanics of grammar, math formulas in a calculus course, key terms in a music course, or core concepts for any other course. For any subject, can you think of certain objectives that would benefit learners to have extra personalized learning support achieving? Do you know any instructors who would benefit from having more time to help learners acquire new skills and learn core concepts? Okay, now we're talking about facilitating online education. Research suggests that when facilitated effectively, online education can not only match, but also surpass traditional face-to-face learning. Here are some areas where you can strengthen your online instruction. Learner-centered education. An effective online instructor is someone who is open to giving up control of the learning process by making students active participants in their learning process. A learner-centered approach acknowledges what students bring to the classroom, the online classroom, their backgrounds, their needs, and their interests, and what they take away as relevant and meaningful outcomes. With the instructor serving as a facilitator, students are given more control and responsibility around how they learn, including the opportunity to teach one another through collaboration and personal interactions. Continuing with facilitating online education, collaboration, and interactive learning, research has found that online instruction is more effective when students collaborate rather than working independently. And of course, we know that as well in the face-to-face classroom. Same thing. There are a variety of ways for students to collaborate online, including synchronous and asynchronous discussions and small group assignments. In addition, the relative anonymity of online discussion helps to create a level playing field for quieter students or those from typically marginalized groups. When asked questions in advance, students have the opportunity to compose thoughtful responses and have their voices heard, as well as respond to one another in a manner not usually afforded by face-to-face instruction. Metacognitive awareness. This refers to the process used to plan, monitor, and assess one's understanding and performance. Metacognition includes a critical awareness of A, one's thinking and learning, and B, oneself as a thinker and learner. Since online learners have more autonomy and responsibility for carrying out the learning process, it's important that students understand which behaviors help them learn and apply those strategies proactively. This awareness and knowledge of one's personal learning process involves increased metacognition, a key practice for students. Continuing, facilitating online instruction, increased flexibility. Online learning offers more flexibility because students can control when and where they learn. By self-monitoring their time and pacing, students are able to spend more time on unfamiliar or difficult content. Immediate feedback. Online learners generally have greater access to instructors via email and are able to have questions answered by their peers in a timely fashion on discussion boards. In addition, online tests and quizzes can be constructed with automatic grading capability that provides timely feedback. Immediate and continual feedback throughout the learning process is beneficial for gaining understanding of difficult concepts, as well as triggering retrieval mechanisms and correcting misconceptions. Multimodal content. The internet provides an abundance of interactive and multimodal material that can be used to increase engagement and appeal to diverse learners. The following are some specific ways to deliver multimodal content online, including through videos, podcasts, screencasts, video conferencing, and presentation software. Okay, so how can schools get it right? Big question. The hybrid approach has, in fact, been implemented for years in education, especially with the disruption of digital technologies. Given the mounting efforts and interests that schools are devoting to hybrid learning, here we are going to examine enabling factors that should be considered for its effective implementation. Three distinctive features to categorize hybrid learning. Time. When. Which parts should be synchronous at the same time, known as real time, or asynchronous, sequential or different times, or can it have a bit of both? Next is the space, where, which can also be, is it going to be face-to-face, sharing the same physical location, or can it be remote, two or more people in different physical locations? And finally, the interaction, how, which can be thought of in terms of the direction of the communication. Is it one way? Is it bidirectional? Or is it multi-directional? Or the type of engagement with no participation, an individual is learning alone without interaction with others, limited participation, where the interaction with others is limited, as it says, and high participation, active and dynamic dynamic exchange with others is regular and essential. Considering these dimensions and their subcomponents, there is a variety of hybrid learning combinations. It's tricky to find the best combination that addresses what is being taught, where, by whom, and to whom. For each one of these combinations, different technologies can be integrated. All these aspects will have strong implications in the kind of hybrid learning provided. Now, let's look at some possible combinations of hybrid learning. We can think of synchronous, hybrid, multi-directional, and high participation. Synchronous and asynchronous, which is hybrid, bidirectional, and limited participation. Synchronous and asynchronous, remote, multi-directional, and limited participation. Asynchronous, remote, bidirectional, and high participation. Asynchronous, remote, bidirectional, and limited participation. Or asynchronous, remote, one-way, and no participation. Time, space, and interaction should be well thought out when designing what subjects, topics, and approach need to be considered for teaching and learning in person and remotely. Most of our learning experiences can be considered a continuum of hybrid learning. When we learn, we integrate different uses and intensities of these three dimensions, even if we participate in a face-to-face learning experience with limited technology. When learning is extended via social media or phone calls with peers to discuss the lesson, there are some forms of hybrid learning going on. When considering the variability of forms and methodologies for delivering and evaluating hybrid learning, it's difficult to compare its cost effectiveness. Okay, now we're going to talk about constant factors in most of hybrid learning forms. There are several constant factors in most of the various forms of hybrid learning. When planning and evaluating different forms of hybrid learning, policymakers can take into account effective use of time. The amount of time invested in face-to-face learning won't be the same for hybrid environments. Some activities might require more time while others might be faster. Should the length of the remote school day and the in-person school day be the same? What is the ideal duration of a remote lesson? Basic skills for hybrid learners. Not all students will enjoy equally or have the same proficiency for each one of the combinations of hybrid learning. It's critical to equip learners with the skills to learn by themselves, be motivated, be resilient, and to be empowered. The good news is that these skills can be learned. Guidance on that will be critical. Next, the level of support that the learners need. Different mechanisms and tools for hybrid learning will require different kinds of help. The support can also be blended, like remote coaching programs, asynchronously contacting students, or a simple help desk where students can request support. Monitoring and supporting well-being is also a critical component. Basic skills for hybrid teaching. It will be critical for teachers to build digital skills, pedagogical effectiveness, or the ability to identify the suitability of different forms of hybrid learning depending on the context. Effective teacher professional development, supporting coaches, and monitoring tools will be critical. Content adaptation. The same amount and diversity of content usually covered when teaching face-to-face may not, in fact, be transferred into hybrid learning. Adaptations will be required in terms of volume and type of content selected. Pedagogical coherence. Switching back and forth between different forms of hybrid learning can be difficult for both teachers and students, especially if there's a lack of coherence between the different learning experiences. To enable learning continuity, education systems can ensure that the lessons learned remotely can also be discussed in person or translate them into project-based learning with the students. An effective alignment with the curriculum will require the careful combination of these three dimensions. Technology. Rather than focusing on the lack of access to technology, which is a well-documented problem, the challenge to address here will be the relevance of the tools chosen. The best technology will not rely on full synchronous multi-directional interaction, and everyone's heard of Zoom fatigue. To calibrate the combination of technologies, consider the dimension and factors mentioned. This will increase its relevance and impact. Hybrid learning offers a wealth of options. However, this flexibility we see comes with some trade-offs. By trying different degrees of interaction, frequency, and learning at school and home, school can improve by documenting experiences, acknowledging the mistakes, improving, supporting teacher and students, and adapting quickly. While it's still too early to see the extent to which hybrid learning becomes a permanent feature of education after COVID, there are enough trends to say that schools should plan and prepare for hybrid learning to be part of this for the near future. Let me check the chat box now. What can we do if we have used hybrid blended learning methods with various interactive platforms and many more, but some students still don't want to participate? I think that'll be a good discussion to add at the end in the question and answer. We can ask people what they have done. I mean, I don't have a ready-made answer for that. At the end, let's add that one again at the end about getting students to participate. Okay, I'm continuing on. Okay. So in the 1960s, many cities around the world built multipurpose stadiums for football games, basketball games, and concerts. These were supposed to be sleek, modern, and broad enough to encompass the needs of every entertainment industry. They were designed to be all things to all people. However, the multipurpose stadiums weren't designed with the fans in mind, which led to half-empty basketball games where fans had horrible sight lines like these. In football, athletes were losing traction on baseball infield and slipping in the dirt. As for concerts, the stadiums were exciting, but they lacked the sound quality of an auditorium. We can say we have the same challenge we're facing in hybrid learning. If we're not careful, we can all too easily design lessons that don't work for students at home or in the physical classroom. They don't work for anyone. No one can claim that teaching hybrid lessons where half the students are at home and half the students are attending via video conference is the ideal form of education. On a purely functional level, it works, but it doesn't always work well. It's the instructional version of a fork, which is a combination of a spoon and a fork. And by trying to merge together two incompatible formats, you're designing lessons that lack the full range of options in either environment. And here's a funny little video about a teacher, I'm sure he looks American to me, trying to navigate both online and in-class learning. This is just about 5 seconds.
Hey class, I'm gonna come around and I'm gonna get the homework. Just have it out on your desk so that you guys can get any of the points that I'm sorry, did it freeze again? Did the online freeze? What do you see? What are you looking at right now?
So you can see he's trying to collect work and he froze for the online students. This is something that can easily happen. Let me check the chat box again. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Definitely, if your camera is not open, you're absent to answer how to get students to participate and be present. I've seen that definitely. My friend carefully was taking attendance through the whole lesson and taking screenshots when the kid didn't have the camera on. And the next question is, how can we integrate effective monitoring and hybrid learning considering the time limitation? Well, hopefully you're going to get some good tips throughout the 6 days on how to do that. But of course, that's a big challenge. Okay. Position of the camera is important, just like we saw. How can we integrate effective monitoring? I think there's many different tools to help monitoring. So I believe you will be learning some of those in these sessions today. Okay, continuing on. Okay, now here is an account of a teacher trying hybrid for the first time. I made this mistake the first time I taught a course where half of my students were in person. And, huh? Okay, I made this mistake the first time where half of my students were in person and half were, wait a minute, this chat's messing me up. Half were in front of the computer. I ended up lecturing in front of my computer camera so that students at home could see me via Zoom. I then faced my web camera at the board where they were expected to look at the slides. Fortunately, I had uploaded my slideshow to the LMS, but still, it was bad. When students asked questions in person, I would repeat it to the students on Zoom. When they had questions, I would repeat it out loud for the students going face to face. I attempted to place students at home with small groups who were in person, leading to bad echoes. Eventually, I changed the grouping and modified the assignment. However, the lesson remained clunky and awkward. Okay, so it doesn't have to be awkward. You have to change and adapt your entire hybrid model. You can't simply have students zoom in to the physical course and expect it to work. You have to try new approaches that would maximize the benefit of both face-to-face and virtual environments. You can focus on the differentiated model or the multiple tracks model and the split A-B model. The next part of this session today talks about different models. So today we will talk about all of these models. The differentiated model, there's 5 models that we're going to discuss. The multi-track model, the split A-B model, the virtual accommodation model, and the independent project model. As educators, we need to be strategic about which model we select based on the needs of our students. And this table represents those. We will start with the differentiated model. The differentiated model. In this model, every student attends the class synchronously at the same time. However, you design differentiated activities for students who are at home and in person. It works well to make use of both synchronous and asynchronous communication tools for students at home and in person. With this approach, all students attend the lesson at the same time. Students begin by logging into a video conference platform from home or going to their seats in person. From there, you can differentiate your approach between the 2 modalities. We start with the warm-up. Students at home and in person work on a warm-up that you have posted to your learning management system. You can set a timer in person and online so that students know the time limit. This is often when you take attendance. Direct instructions. Students at home view a pre-recorded flipped video by pressing play. Does someone have on their microphone? By pressing play on the link you share in the video chat. Everyone in the video conference should be on mute. Meanwhile, you press play on the same video for your students in person. This allows the students to access it together. In the differentiated model, we have guided practice. Students meet together as a whole class. They can submit their questions on a Google form and you answer them in the moment in front of the computer so that students at home can hear. Or you can allow students to use a wireless microphone and you can hook up the computer to a speaker so that students at home can speak to the whole group class and also hear what the in-person class is saying. Independent practice. As students move into small groups to practice their learning, the students at home can work collaboratively using breakout rooms, while students in person can meet physically in small groups. You can add accountability components by having students write in a shared document. At times, you might have students group that includes in-person and at-home students, but admittedly, this is hard to do. A closure. Every student fills out an online form for a closing activity. And then the warm-up, students work on their blog post. Direct instructions. Students at home view a pre-recorded flipped video by pressing play on the link you share in the video chat. Everyone, including the students, are on mute. Meanwhile, you press play on the same video for your students in person. This allows all students to access it together. This short video might be a quick review of the research process, or it might be a key concept they need to learn connected to this project. This part is about 5 minutes maximum. And then project time. Students at home work on their projects with other students at home by being strategic with tech-based collaboration tools. Often they start reviewing their project progress on a spreadsheet or using a tool such as Trello. From there, they use a mix of tools as they work on their projects. This is the bulk of the class time, the project time. And finally, closure. Students reflect on their learning using an online form, or they go back to their project management tool to set project goals for the next day. While this option keeps groups separated by in-person or at home, students still interact with one another on the class learning management system. You can post questions as warm-ups in a way that creates a combined classroom community. You can also design assignments with mixed groups where students at home and in person might work together for smaller amounts of time. They might give feedback using the 20-minute feedback system, or they could work on a shared document together in collaborative brainstorms. Here, all students are in breakout rooms and every student has headphones. This helps prevent the issue of noise and bad audio quality. So this is some basic information on the differentiated model. Let's move on to the multi-track. The multi-track approach, the second approach, treats each group as an entirely different cohort within the same larger class. So while students might learn the same lessons and the same objectives, they essentially function like separate classes. At the start of the course, students sign up with the virtual track Synchronous Remote Learning, the online track Asynchronous Remote Learning, or the face-to-face track. As you teach, you run the virtual and in-person lessons at the same time. Meanwhile, students can access the online modules in their own time. Let me check the chat. Do in-person students need to log into? I don't think they would need to log into Zoom, but I guess if you're doing certain activities online, only online, the students would need to log into Zoom. Oops, just a second. The first part of the multi-track is the warm-up. Students in all 3 tracks, so that's they're either all online or they're face-to-face or they're synchronous remote, asynchronous remote, or they're face-to-face. All 3 tracks log into their cohort's learning management system and answer the same discussion question. You have the directions for logging in posted on the video chat for the virtual cohort and displayed on the board for the face-to-face group. Meanwhile, students in the online cohort post their answers on their own time. Direct instruction. Students at home in the virtual cohort view a pre-recorded flipped video by pressing play on the link you share in the video chat. Meanwhile, you teach the same direct instruction in a more interactive way to the face-to-face group. Students in the online cohort watch the same flipped video as the virtual cohort. However, they simply need to watch and respond by the end of the day. Guided practice. You vary your guided practice depending on the day. So you might do a guided practice work with your in-person class while students in the virtual cohort engage in small group discussions to deepen their understanding of the content. The next day you can change it, you can flip it. Members of the online cohort have the option of joining the virtual cohort if they need additional guided practice. Independent practice. As students move into small groups to practice their learning, the students at home can work collaboratively using the breakout rooms while students in person can meet in small groups. Students in the online cohort can collaborate using asynchronous tools. This second model is most tailored to each environment. It has very few spoon fork moments. However, it is a real challenge in terms of prep work and logistics. Okay, read between the lines. It's hard for the teachers. For this reason, it sometimes helps to divide the cohorts into separate classes and allow different teachers to alternate teaching the virtual or in-person groups. For project-based learning, there's more flexibility. You can craft projects that allow the online cohort to work independently or to schedule collaborative project work throughout the week. You can do email and video conference check-ins. The virtual cohort can also work on the same projects, and you can essentially place them in the breakout rooms immediately after they log in. Meanwhile, your face-to-face group can begin working on their projects the moment they walk through the door. As the facilitator, you, the teacher, can move between groups in each location and help problem solve and guide students' reflection. When you need to do direct instruction, you can create a flipped video for students in the virtual or online environments, and you can do the same type of direct instruction face-to-face when the moment arises. So now let's move on to another model, the split A-B model. The last 2 models we discussed work best in situations where half the students are required to stay at home at all times. This is true in university courses where students live far away, but also during the quarantine with families who do not want to send their students to a physical classroom building. However, in some cases, you might have all students opting into face-to-face learning, but you also need to maintain social distancing. Here's where the split A-B model works well. So if you look at the chart, a typical schedule might be Group A, which is the blue, cohort A, meets in person on Tuesday and Wednesday, the blue pictures. And then Group B, the second cohort, meets in person Thursday and Friday. And then Monday is a homeroom, study hall, and open office hours. With the AB schedule, teachers can make the most out of face-to-face time by maximizing student interaction when they meet in the physical building. They can have students watch flip videos, do station rotation, engage in meaningful independent practice, or do independent projects when they are at home. In other words, the synchronous learning happens face-to-face, and the asynchronous learning happens at home when students can work at their own place. So building on these ideas, I'd like to share a few ways you might organize the A-B split classroom. Okay, the flipped model. Students watch a video, read an article, or get a preview assignment that they do at home. Then they meet in person, and they might do a lab to reinforce the ideas, engage in guided practice, or do small group intervention instruction. Teachers might even do shorter game-based activities or simulations to reinforce concepts they learned at home. Okay, the project-based model. So there are several options here. The first is to have students work on an independent project at home and a collaborative project in person. This is the easier option logistically, but it can lead to project fatigue. The second option is to have students work on their projects in person and engage in more traditional work, watching direct instructional videos, doing skills practice at home. The third option is to have students work on their projects at home and at school. So they might engage in inquiry in person and then do the research at home, where they share their findings in a Google Doc. They can then meet in person to debrief the research and engage in the ideas exchange in person. From there, they might do prototyping in person and at home and using the same shared project management tools in class and at home. It's key that we keep equality in mind, and that we allow students to bring home materials from the classroom when necessary. Now, another thing with the split A-B is called the station rotation. Students move through stations that they can do in person and at home. There's a great model where students meet with the teacher, engage in online learning, and engage in offline learning, like reading a book. Now, this idea is great because it's important to realize that distance learning doesn't always have to be in front of a screen. Reading a book by yourself can count. However, there are many station rotation models where you can use where you can rotate students through key skills and concepts in online and in-person groups. So we have the intervention and enrichment model. With this model, students engage in online learning and then they show up to class with specific questions. Teachers then pull small groups for intervention, clarify misunderstandings, and create options for meaningful enrichment activities. This is not a study hall. It's much more structured. However, it is designed to maximize the dynamic, interactive elements of targeted health. We have the seminar model. This closely aligns with the college seminar model. Students do a reading, watch a video, or listen to a podcast. Then, when they are in person, they engage in a Socratic seminar. This model might make use of a PBL element, a project-based learning element, and might include the occasional direct instruction. However, the whole focus is on maximizing group interaction time. So students might do some reflective writing, but the bulk of the class time is small group and whole class discussion. While the seminar model tends to be focused heavily on academics, teachers can also use it for social emotional learning. It can be a time for community building. The virtual accommodation model, there are times when you have a handful of students, figuratively, because let's be honest, you can't fit the students into the palm of your hand unless you teach Smurfs, who need to work remotely while the rest of the class learns in person. In these moments, a virtual accommodation model works best. Here, you can teach the same lesson you would typically teach, but have one student volunteer, use the video chat, and a single computer to allow students to participate. This person can sit near the teacher during direct instruction. You might still do a flipped video that the students at home watch. However, they might just watch you teach face-to-face. As they move into small groups, you can mute the video conference and let the students at home form a small group. You can then place the assignments on your LMS and have students in those small groups continue to work independently as a virtual group. However, it's important that you continue to check on them in the progress. So in this one, you have a teacher's helper, basically. The independent project model, sometimes your in-person activity simply doesn't connect with what students can do at home. It might involve a specific lab or a maker project. In these rare moments, you might need to do an independent project. Students can learn the same standards and focus on the same learning targets, but they do so in a way that is separate from their classmates. One alternative is to do an independent project that students can do at home or in person. Okay, so now that we've briefly learned about the different models, let's talk about ways to present new information to students. In How People Learn, a synthesis of cognitive science and education psychology research about the process of learning, John Bradsford and his colleagues identify 4 key elements of the effective learning environment: knowledge-centered, assessment-centered, learner-centered, and community-centered. Making online courses or modules appropriately knowledge-centered requires identifying an effective mechanism for presenting new information. These mechanisms can range from providing an appropriate reading assignment to creating a screen-captured lesson with embedded video, to embedding a learning object, a self-contained lesson that focuses on one learning object and includes assessment. Although there is no one mechanism for presenting content that is most effective for all situations, there are some general rules to keep in mind when preparing content for online delivery. First, provide an obvious path through the material and make sure that the guideposts are clear to the student. The student knows what to do. Second, organize the content in logical units or modules, in which each module is organized around a major topic and contains relevant objectives, materials, and associated activities. In the introduction to the module, include information about how long the student should expect to spend working on the module. With each module, present content in chunks that are easily digestible. When presenting text, format the content by the web by breaking it into short paragraphs and using headings, bullets, graphics, and other formatting devices that make web pages easier to read. The 7+or-2 instructional design rule of thumb, based on the work of psychologist George Miller, suggests including 5 to 9, so that's 7+or-2, 5 to 9 pieces of information in each segment. Then, when presenting audio or video, include a brief description and information about the link. Keep the segments short, from 2 to 15 minutes, to maximize listeners' retention. And finally, help the students digest the chunks of material you are giving them by providing a short recall or application question after each one. Okay, now what are good practices to use when designing your online courses? First of all, know your learner. Many schools and students who have utilized online courses since the beginning of the pandemic mentioned the following key items in online education. Most online students have several other occupations in their social lives, so they seek convenience and flexibility when continuing their education. Millions of K-12 students enjoy online instruction as it enables them to fit education around their active social life and family time, and they can study anytime and anywhere. Online students unquestionably value independence, self-direction, and control that online education offers them. Among several factors that students most often express is the ability to study when and where I want, and the ability to study at my own pace. As you design your course, it's important to develop as comprehensive a picture as possible of the specific students who will be in your class. Gaining a sense of their prior knowledge and their technology competency will help you know what supports they will need, and you can tailor your instruction accordingly. A few ways to gain these insights includes asking students to complete an online souvenir, concept inventory, or pre-assessment. In addition, students can reflect on their prior knowledge and experiences through online discussions or blog posts. And develop learning goals. As with face-to-face instruction, it's imperative to begin with the end in mind, understanding by design model, by developing learning goals first. Ask yourself, what are the key concepts and/or skills students need to master by the end of this course? The answer to this question, what they need to take away at the end of the course, will help in developing course content, activities, and assessments that align with your learning goals, as well as choosing the appropriate technology. Have clear expectations. Present clear guidelines for participation in the class, as well as specific information for students about course expectations and procedures. In addition, use rubrics to clearly communicate learning objectives and grading criteria for each learning activity in the course, and incorporate these into the assessment. Okay, now we need to think about organizing course content. First of all, provide an obvious path through the material and make sure the guideposts are clear. Experts state that organization is essential since online learners need to fit the course into their crowded domestic or personal activities. They emphasize the importance of posting course assignments and due dates early and having clear directions. Researchers also explained the importance of clearly labeling and organizing course level and section level materials in order to create a path that students can follow. Organize content in logical units or modules in which each module is organized around a major topic and contains relevant objectives. In the introduction to the model, include information about how the student how long the student should expect to spend working on this module. As I said a few minutes ago, remember the 7 plus or minus 2, so 5 to 9 pieces of information. Remember, you want to keep it brief, what you show the students so that they can retain it, and ask concept questions at the end to check that they have learned, and it will be a way for them to continue. Okay, we're getting a little close on time, so I'm going to move on. So, having said all of this, I'd like to finish the session today with 16 hybrid tips, learning tips for you, the teacher. So what can we learn for teachers who are navigating hybrid learning? At an unprecedented moment in education, teachers are the frontline workers adapting their work to online and hybrid formats without the benefit of time and resources to prepare. This is particularly challenging when students can join a live class either in person or remotely, a common form of hybrid learning during the pandemic. How do we design a great class when our students don't share the same location? Responses were collected from teachers, and these were practical, insightful, and generous. Here are 16 of them organized by theme. First of all, move your headquarters online. In normal times, most of us think of a brick and mortar classroom as headquarters, the actual physical classroom. Students know it's the place where they can get instruction and help. Teachers think of class as the time and place for content delivery and assessment, and it's a place where class communities are built. However, in hybrid learning, remote students may never physically be in the classroom, so we have to move our headquarters online. Have a backup plan, an asynchronous backup plan. Posting content, instruction, and activities online ensures that students know what to do, even if the conferencing tools that they learn they use to join class fail. So even if they can't get online, the internet went out or the electricity went out or something, have a backup. Use asynchronous learning to maximize synchronous learning. Time together in hybrid learning is precious. So students should be using async learning to absorb content and complete activities that will prepare them for highly interactive synchronous classes like debate, presentation, or design spirit. So don't waste time with asynchronous things during the lessons. Design clear, detailed instructions. For async tasks, make sure that you've posted detailed guidance for what students should do. And master technology basics. That's sometimes the hardest part of all this. Teachers have faced a wave of options when it comes to classroom technology that supports online and hybrid learning. We can't possibly master everything out there, but teachers emphasize that some basic skills should be in place. Make sure that everyone can see and hear. That's clear. Learn how to project and share your screen. I believe everyone on this call knows that at this point. And connect in-person and remote students. This can be the most challenging element of hybrid learning, but many teachers said it was in fact worth the effort. We know relationships and collaboration matter to students for both wellness and learning, and helping students, especially those who are remote, feel like participants and not just an audience. So you need to create a class community. So first of all, have every student log on to a video call. If you're using a tool like Zoom, oh, here's the answer to the question that was given. Should you have all students log in? It says, if you're using a tool like Zoom to bring remote students into class, have all the students log in. This allows remote and in-person students to collaborate in small groups. Use chat tools for real-time collaboration. Sometimes getting all students on the same video call isn't practical, but tools like Slack, Google Chat, Microsoft Teams, and others allow for real-time conversation and collaboration without requiring a video audio setup. And set up your classroom for connection. Your remote students should be able to see and hear you in person, your in-person students. Your in-person students should have access to the same back channel as the remote students. If possible, project your remote students onto a screen so they are visible to in-person students. 9, make thinking structured and visible. Teachers have leaned into structured interaction, like the fishbowl interaction that was discussed in the previous session, and preset pods or cohorts of students, mixing in-person and remote students together so that they can stay together over time. Small groups should use technology to document and share their work, making their thinking visible to all students. Okay, and the final tips are make clear intentional plans and share them. Sharing lesson plans or agendas with students in advance came up again and again when the teachers were asked. This transparency can help ease students' minds and help them acclimate to the complicated arrangements of hybrid learning. Share a daily plan as the class begins. Use links to make your plans interactive. And then make time for remote students. However hard teachers try to involve the remote students in class activities, the remote students do, in fact, require specific attention and care. Setting aside time to build these relationships is critical. 12, schedule individual or small group conferences with your remote students. 13, make time to focus on remote students. Leave time at the end of class to focus entirely on these remote students. Slow down and forgive yourself, possibly the most important message here today. The hybrid format is new to most teachers and students. Teachers need to give themselves permission, a hall pass or whatever, to reduce their normal pace, to acknowledge and embrace challenges and mistakes, and to prioritize the safety and engagements of students. So try something new. Record lectures with EduCreation. Use Flipgrid for student responses. Put in an EduPuzzle. Remind yourself that learning is the goal and that this year is different. It's different than any year we have ever lived through. It's okay to slow down, breathe, regroup. 16, know your students and let them know you. This is where I'm saying it's okay to be human, laugh together, and laugh at the mistakes and challenges together. So that is the session on hybrid learning, and it's quite full. We've gone through all of these, and I believe now it's question and answer, and this is my name and email if anyone would like it. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And just a second, stop share. Oh dear. That's
Oh
long.
yeah, this is very long. There is a
Oh, this is from, okay. I believe that's for you guys to read if you would like.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's for you guys to read.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
I hope that I was able to keep everybody awake awake today and not getting too stressed out about this the hybrid business, because actually it stresses me out as well. And I know everyone has had the year from whatever, like we've never had before. So if, any questions you can ask, but good luck, really.
Okay.
We will get through it. I don't know how.
Okay, I will open for the one that would like to ask questions directly to Miss Mary. You can open your mic and ask directly. And for your information, actually, some of the school here, international schools in Jakarta, they have already been doing the hybrid classroom. So some of the students attend the school, and while at the same time, simultaneously, some other students at home join the lesson. And it's quite also at university. One of the university, private university, President University, if I'm not mistaken, also doing this hybrid learning. So some of the students, they join the class with health protocol, and while at the same time simultaneously doing the Zoom conference meeting. And I'd like to invite, if anyone here would like to ask questions directly
Or share your
or
experience of
share
hybrid
something
learning. Yeah.
insight about the hybrid learning. Because as you know that we are still don't know what will happen this new academic year, since in past few days, the active case every day increases significantly. Yesterday it was 21,000 a day. Yeah, and we still don't know what will happen next weeks, next 2 weeks, and hopefully it will just getting better and all get vaccinated. and we can be ready for the offline or just hybrid, because we still have to make sure that we uh, take care of ourselves and other, in the sense of avoiding to get the COVID. So I'd like to invite again we still have 2 minutes to, okay, so Miss Aldila, please.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, Miss Mary Seniors. So I have some questions here. Actually, I put it on the chat before on the first session, but I think it hasn't been answered. It's about are there any ways to optimize the equal impact of both the material delivery and the students' understanding for both in-person and remote one? Because as you delivered it before, that we need to um, where is that? We need to divide our attention to both the virtual and the offline classes or the offline students. So how to make both equal?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, of course, the goal is to make it equal, but I believe it's actually very difficult to do that. And I mean, a friend of mine was doing the actual hybrid, and she said she kept paying more attention to the students on the screen instead of the ones who actually had bothered to come to school. And it was a voluntary, the kids who came, you could do either. There was not divided, there was no clear division. And she realized she was really slighting the ones who actually made the effort to come to school. So I think that's a real problem. And I mean, I hope that as all the teachers develop their skills more, we're able to figure that out. But anyone who's done it here could chime in right now and give some answers. I really don't know. I think that's very difficult. And I mean, other than maybe a checklist of asking questions, to who asked questions, how many answers you got from each one, but it is definitely difficult, I believe. So if anyone would like to share their experience, I would be very happy to hear it.
So actually, none of us have done this, maybe hybrid learning yet. So yeah, so
I mean,
this is like,
yeah, someone has put in planning and arranging course materials is essential. I mean, what I read into that is the teacher has to do a lot of work to get it to try to be balanced. I mean, going through this whole presentation, it was, there was not too much put in about the impact of the extra workload on teachers, actually. It's more from the school's point of view on how to navigate having students at home and at school at the same time. So hopefully as we, get better at it, it will be easier to plan. But I think it just takes a lot of planning. So good luck.
okay. Yeah. Mr. Osman Bedel said that new is always scary. Yeah, because uh, previously we do the online learning. Now we have to do the both, like online and offline at the same time. And yeah, and it's also new, of course. Now I think the time is up. Thank you very much, Miss Mary Senius, for the opportunity to share with us your insight and a very delightful presentation. And uh, maybe the closing statement before we wrap it up.
I just like to wish everyone good luck. And I think, as Osman Bey just said, learning something new is always scary. And I mean, we've been scared. I've been scared many times this year, and not just about education, but about, greater things. So I hope that everyone, we together, the pandemic has given us a chance an opportunity to learn new things. Of course, everybody knows that. everyone's tech skills are better. Everyone's, much more at home, logging in, doing stuff like that. So hopefully as time passes, we will, it will get easier. So, and also hopefully the COVID will finish.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
Also,
I wish everyone good luck and, just take it easy. Don't beat yourself up.
okay. There is a questions, but we have already done. But maybe we can. Will the syllabus assessment that regulated by the school be adapted to the hybrid learning challenge? I think the school should do this. The school should manage to make sure that the must be. The short answer
Yeah.
is must be. Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Mary.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to be here today. Thank you so much.
And
Bye-bye.
on behalf of all the committee, I'd like to thank everyone and thank you, Miss Mary Senyus, and thank you everyone, and see you
Thanks.
later tomorrow. Please
Thank you.
defer moderator.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye. Bye.
Assalamualaikum Pak.
Waalaikumsalam.
Pak Host.
Bu.
Mohon maaf Pak, tadi itu